Good afternoon and welcome to the ASDB board meeting. I call the meeting to order at 4 p.m. And Brittany, could you do roll?
Good evening. For roll call, we have Linda Bove.
Present.
I'm Brittany Buchanan. I am present. Colette Chapman.
Present.
Lynn Davison. Not in attendance. Michael.
She's excused. Yeah. She's excused.
Michael Gordon.
On his way. He'll join us shortly.
Sue Kay.
Present.
Katie Cinco. She's also excused. We have Earl Terry.
Present.
And looks like our newest board member, Susan Singler.
Present.
Thank you. Moving on to 1.2, information item, the introduction of our new board member. We have Susan Singler joining us. She's been appointed by the governor. She is the new parent rep, and I'm going to let her take over and tell us about herself.
First of all, thank you so much, and it's really an honor and a pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to serving on the board for this wonderful organization. My son is a graduate of Arizona School for the Blind in Tucson in 2000. His name is Nathan Womack, and I'm very proud of him. He is blind with developmental and intellectual disabilities and some cerebral palsy. He is also a wonderful singer and sings the national anthem for the Special Olympics in Tucson and therapeutic riding of Tucson, and has been invited to sing the anthem for the Roadrunners. So I feel like this is a wonderful community, and we look at ourselves as ambassadors for Arizona School for the Deaf and Blind. So it's a pleasure to be here. My background includes a nurse. I've been a registered nurse since 1976. Yeah, that's a long time. And I started a parent organization in Tennessee. You all may be able to note that I have a little bit of a southern accent. Parent organization, Tennessee Association for the Parents of Visually Impaired, back in 1984. We started a parent support group that grew into an early intervention program that's now housed at Vanderbilt University, and started our early intervention services from birth rather than age 4. I've also a contributing author to a book published by the National Association for Parents of the Visually Impaired. It's a special education guide for parents of visually impaired children. So this is my passion, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 1.3, information item, early learning program overview presentation with Dr. Kendra Benedict. And can I just mention for the minutes that Mike Gordon is now present.
Hello, I'm Kendra Benedict, and I've got Michelle Ahern, our Assistant Director, here with me today. And so good afternoon to Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Ketchup, Assistant Superintendent Cooper, President Goodeichel, and all of the ASDB board and ASDB community. Also, before I get started, Michelle and I want to take a quick second here to thank all of the ELT staff. Everything we're going to share with you today only happens because of them. They're the ones on the front lines. They're the ones with families, with children, every day making a difference. And so I would be remiss if we did not take time to do that really quick. So I'm going to tell you that my presentation is longer than 10 minutes, so I'm going to skip through some of it so I can keep to the timeline. And Michelle and I will be tag teaming here. So if I can go to the second slide, the agenda. We'll be going over our programming, all the different services that we provide around the state, enrollment trends, which I think you might find interesting, our student outcomes, which you asked to see at our last meeting, our current professional development initiatives, and programming initiatives, and where we're headed from here. Next slide, 2 more slides, please. Yes, that's it. This is a super quick visual of how birth to 3 and preschool fit in to the overall landscape of ASDB and the state in regard to education. ELP is made up of 2 very distinct yet related groups, birth to 3 and preschool. Both programs, of course, fall under IDEA. Birth to 3 falls under Part C, and preschool, like K-12, falls under Part B. Birth to 3 is overseen by ASIP, and preschool, just like K-12, is overseen by ABE. I'm going to skip the next few slides. It goes into a little more detail about Part C and AZIP. And if anyone would like to know more about that at another time, I'm happy to meet with you and go over that. But in respect for the time that we have, I don't think we'll be able to do that today. If we go to the ASDB birth to 3 slides, so about 3 more slides. Perfect. All right. We are the ASIP service providing agency, designated agency for all blind, visually impaired, deaf and hard of hearing, and deaf-blind children across the entire state. We offer programs that are in the home, community-based, and virtual. ASIP's not only preference but mandate is that in-home services always is the first that is offered, and then per family's choice, we are allowed to provide virtual services. I'm going to let Michelle go through about preschool.
All right. So we, preschool, functions under IDEA Part B. And a little bit about our preschool. We're not just a one-room schoolhouse somewhere. We do have multiple sites. We have itinerant services that we are providing services to kids in public schools in Region 1 and also in Yuma. We reach deaf and hard of hearing students, blind, low vision kiddos, and also deaf-blind. We have 3 campus-based programs, one in Tucson, one here, obviously, where we are today, and then one in Pima County, the Simonton campus. And then we also partner with the Foundation for Blind Children, and they, here in town, and they serve our blind, low vision, and deaf-blind children in Maricopa County.
All right. If we can advance about 2 more slides. Next one, I think, is the preschool that Michelle just went over, and then the next one should be enrollment trends. All right, and then one more, please. Okay. I'm going to go over the birth to 3 enrollment trends, and then Michelle will go over the preschool enrollment trends. These are over the last 5 years since 2020. You can see that I think we are, I can't see that. Yes, you'll see that 2023 is missing because that's when we had our change in our student information system. So the data is not as reliable from that period of time. But this goes back from 2020, and you can see the red line is our deaf and hard of hearing numbers, and our blue line is our blind and visually impaired numbers. You can see that for the last 5 years, we've had a steady incline in deaf and hard of hearing, as well as blind low vision. Those lines are just our trend lines. This is not broken down by region. It is statewide.
And next slide, please. These are our preschool numbers. So again, we're missing the 2023 data. But you can see in red, we have the Foundation for Blind Children. And there has been a bit of a decrease there. Not huge, but it's there. At PDSD, more of an increase over time from 2019 to 2024. And then at the Tucson campus, there's more of a similar data going on there. One of the things that I would like to note is in Tucson, we do not have the Foundation for Blind Children. So the kiddos that might be coming to us here in town in Phoenix, we don't have that luxury to have those players on our team. And we also don't have any specific specialized classrooms for listening and spoken language. So families who are interested in that, we don't have a Desert Voices or other places that might really focus on that like they do here in town in Phoenix. So I would say that's one of the reasons why Tucson's numbers is a little bit more steady. And let's see what else. Yeah. Next slide, please.
Okay, these are some of my favorite slides, the next three, and I ask that you pay special attention to these. I want to show you with these slides the geographical area that we cover, the number of children and families we cover, and the number of teachers that we have to cover these areas. I think this is probably one of our most important slides today. In Region 1, our providers serve both birth to 3 and itinerant preschool. That is not the same for Region 2. For Region 3, we also serve itinerant preschool, but only in Yuma. Okay? So in Region 1, we have 4 deaf and hard of hearing teachers and 3 blind low vision teachers. And one of those blind low vision teachers is traveling up from Phoenix to help serve the area. So really only 2 that live in northern Arizona, 1 in Flagstaff and 1 in Show Low. We have 2 teachers covering 65,974 miles. Let that sit for a second. Okay, we serve 32 birth to 3 children, 10 itinerant preschool children for deaf, hard of hearing, 48 birth to 3 teachers for blind low, or I'm sorry, birth to 3 children, birth to 3 blind low vision is 48, and itinerant preschool 6. So the 3 teachers that I was referring to, that was blind low vision. We have 4 teachers serving deaf, hard of hearing, a total of 42 children across 65,974 square miles. So we do our absolute best, but you can imagine it is very difficult to get everywhere that we need to and want to be. Next slide. In comparison, in Region 2, obviously a much more densely populated area, we serve 9,202 square miles. Our birth to 3 teachers, again, we don't have itinerant in this area. Region 2 covers itinerant preschool in the metropolitan area. We have 200 birth to 3 DHH with 12 teachers and 141 birth to 3 with 4 teachers. And those 4 teachers are employed by Foundation for Blind Children. Those are not our teachers. And then for the campus preschool here in Phoenix, we have currently 26 students in our preschool classrooms with 5 teachers. And we have actually 4 now. And blind low vision at FBC, 34 students and 8 teachers. And then lastly, next slide, Region 3. You'll see similar to Region 1, we have teachers serving a vast geographical area. For itinerant preschool, we have 7 children in Yuma, where we have 1 teacher providing those services. We have 100 birth to 3 across all of Region 3, covering 38,471 square miles with 5 teachers. And then blind low vision, 50 children with 3 teachers. And then campus preschool, 23 children in the deaf and hard of hearing preschool with 4 teachers. Now, Michelle will, oh, no, actually, I've got one more slide. 2 more slides, please. Okay. I want to talk about outcomes, how birth to 3 and preschool is doing. Now, I want to preface this with, this is the progress of our deaf and hard of hearing students over the last 5 years. Our blind and visually impaired students, in our last strategic plan, we really struggled to determine a way to measure progress. They're a very heterogeneous, small group, and we aren't the only ones that struggle with that. We've been teaming with FBC, with other states, trying to figure out what is the most reliable and valid way to see if we're providing the services that we need to provide. And we are still working on that. Happy to say we're closer, and I look forward to the strategic plan 2 to be able to improve. But right now, today, these are just the deaf and hard of hearing numbers. So for birth to 3, progress over time, you can see they're listed on the graph, are the last 4 years, and from our participation in the program Odyssey out of Colorado. Every year, the children take assessments 6 months apart from each other, so 6 to 7 months. You want to see, of course, at least that much growth in that time to make sure that they aren't falling behind. So we're right on that target. Next slide. And then this highlights birth to 3 progress over time in just the areas of communication, receptive language, and expressive language. And you can see there that over a time elapsed of 7 months, that we're seeing about 6.5 months growth. So we still have work to do there. I'm going to let Michelle talk about preschool.
All right, also looking at the Odyssey numbers, our original data in 21-22, which was approximately 10 months between testing periods, we had a 10.5 in the growth area. So 10.5 months of growth in about just a little over 10 months. So that's really quite amazing, which is why we want to also, again, send kudos to our staff because they are really killing it. And then as you can see, as you go down, roughly 6 months between testing periods, and our growth is at 6.2. And then we moved up to 7.6 as far as the growth goes in preschool. Sorry, and I forgot to advance the slide. So there's that. All right, and we're going to advance the slide once more. All right. This one is our progress over time in the specific subtests, moving from stating their needs, giving commands, personal requests, interaction, explaining what they want, and then using higher language. And overall, everywhere from between 11% growth all the way up to 21% growth, which, depending on what those areas are. So we're quite excited about what's happening in preschool, and we'd like to keep moving forward.
I want to apologize. It's difficult to stay up with the slides when you're not pushing it yourself. They're helping us, but we're not doing a great job reminding them to advance. So, no, it's hard. Anyways, if you could advance one more slide, please. Okay. I'm going to not take as much time on these slides. Again, I think you all are familiar with our contracts with Foundation for Blind Children. We have one with birth to 3, one with preschool. Like Michelle said, we don't have that luxury of serving preschool-age children in Tucson that are specifically have needs in blind and low vision. We do serve some deaf-blind children at both of our campuses, PDSD and ASDB, and that's a learning curve for us, but we have support from our blind VI teachers and deaf-blind projects, and so that's been going well. Each of those children teach us something every day. So if you could advance the next, I will tell you, next slide. Next slide. Okay, I do want to mention the family support that FBC offers, because this is available to all families, not just families that are enrolled at FBC. They have many, many different parent-toddler groups. They have social events that families can, and they open it up to the state, but obviously those in Maricopa County are the ones that are most frequently going to be there. But they are a wonderful resource from birth to end of life. In all reality, they serve the whole spectrum. All right. And then next slide. And next slide. And next slide.
I'd like to highlight some of the professional development efforts that we have put into place in the preschool programming. One is the pyramid model, so we are embarking on a new journey, working on honing in on those behaviors that we're seeing, more and more kiddos with more and more severe behaviors, and how can we reach those kids, how can we give our staff strategies to help make those kids as successful as possible. So the pyramid model is kicking off right now as we speak. We have our very first launch meeting coming up next week, so we're really excited about that. We started the Foundations for Literacy. It's a curriculum that's created specifically for deaf and hard of hearing students. It has a spoken language component, and it has an ASL signing component. So I also have really fun data on that if you're interested, if you like numbers. We've also been working on the explicit contextualized vocabulary intervention with the U of A, and pairing that with our vocabulary strategies that we have been using over time. And coaching, individual coaching is going to start happening with that ECVI very soon. And then there are many more, but I just wanted to kind of keep it brief because I don't know how much time I have left. But if you have any questions about all the things that preschool's doing, I would love to talk more about that at another time.
All right, if you can advance the slide a few more. Next one. Yes, that's correct. Thank you. So improving efficiencies, that's something that we are focused on doing. We've been doing that all year, obviously for a number of reasons, but to maximize our resources, to reach those kids across those 65,000 square miles in northern Arizona, we need to be as efficient as we can in-house. We have an incredible birth to 3 referral system that is overseen by Manuela Giacomo and primarily Laura Hocknell, but also Lisa Ring and Melissa Hoyle. And we also have a few blind VI teachers that have stepped up this year, Amy Huckaba, Deanne Wells, and Allie Scott, to assist us in processing all of those referrals that come through 365 days a year, even on Christmas, New Year's, Martin Luther King Day, all of them. We are very excited about the request for participation that we started this year for campus preschool. We've never had a formalized referral process for preschool on our campuses. So now we're better able to track the number of children that are considering our program. We're able to track the length of time from referral to placement to see where we can improve in regard to that, to get these kids in by 3. And then in-house, just a few things that we're doing that help us move along more quickly in our day. There's some incredible admin support that also help us with travel requests, purchasing requests, and those are all the things behind the scenes that make ELP run, and without those folks, it'd be very difficult. Okay, 2 more slides. Can you advance? Okay, implications. We'll go there. For implications, all of this that we've shared with you today, which again, we can go into much more depth in a work study or one-on-one or in a small group if anyone is interested. But all of these things let us know what it is that, when looked at holistically, give us an idea of where we are and where we need to go. We need to continue to consider developmental milestones and make sure that our children and families are supported to be able to reach those and make progress on an individual basis. We have many children, as I've shared before, that are twice exceptional, that come to us with additional disabilities, and we are always improving ways to find strategies to be able to reach them. Child Find is another initiative that we are working with ASDB. ASDB's Child Find numbers are down. We are seeing later and later IDs, and whether that's going back to COVID or the number of medical resources, there are no pediatric audiologists, or maybe one in all of northern Arizona. So that's going to obviously impact the age at which those kiddos are identified. And then, of course, family support. And we want to extend our family support. We have amazing birth to 3 support, but we'd really like to improve in preschool and work with FBC more to provide support for families with blind and low vision, and then work within our preschool programs with itinerant and campus to provide better family support beyond age 3. And you can advance the slide. And that is what we have today for you. We can take whatever questions you have.
I have a couple. On the progress that you showed for us, I saw that the progress age was in months. Any like rough median age for like actual age in comparison, just to kind of give us an idea, like where they started and where they ended real age?
There's one slide in birth to 3, and I think there's one in preschool as well. I don't know how to tell you to advance to it, but I think you guys all have copies of this. So if you go to the birth to 3 progress over time slide that has 3 rows of DAISY 2 scores, communication, receptive language, and expressive, those are age scores right there.
Okay.
So the average, the age of the children at the beginning, the first test, you have their average ages there. By the time they took the second test, and then time elapsed and the growth that they made within that period of time. We don't have scores comparing them to their hearing or sighted children. We don't.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the
We can,
clarification.
And also, our whole curriculum and assessment is all based on the Arizona Early Learning Standards.
Mm-hmm.
And so we follow, everything we do is based on developmentally appropriate growth for children.
Okay.
Michelle, did you want to say anything else on that?
We can get those numbers for you if you do want typically developing peers. We can get those to you.
Okay. I would be interested.
Can I ask a question that kind of falls in line with that?
Absolutely.
My question is slightly related. With the growth number, do you have, like, what is expected growth? Like, what can I have a frame of reference for this number? Like, should we be expecting less than, like in the specific chart you referenced, should we be expecting less than 6.5 months of growth? Should we be expecting more typically? Like, where is this falling?
So it depends what they come in as. If a child comes in preschool and they are, say, 6 months behind, we're going to need them to double that growth in 6 more months. But we definitely at least want to see them making a month's progress in a month's time, or a year's progress in a year's time. That's what would be expected.
Thank you.
I have another question, and then I'll open that up to everybody else as well. When we were looking at the numbers of teachers for both birth to 3 and for preschool, students per teacher ratio in some of those areas are very high. How many unfilled positions do you have currently?
Right now, we don't have any unfilled DHH positions in northern Arizona. We have other positions we've been approved for are filled, in birth to 3 in northern Arizona. And then in blind VI, we had one teacher just retire, and then we have another position that's open, so 2.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
Gordon. Looking at the,
I don't know. Is it coming through the mic? Okay.
looking at the census information, I just want to make sure I understand it. So Region 1 is 66,000 square miles, and there are 3 teachers for the blind population in that whole northern area?
Correct.
Okay. I mean, pretty daunting figures here, for sure.
Exactly.
Region 2 is basically Maricopa.
Yes,
That's done by FBC,
correct.
and that has about 9,200. Now, looking at Region 3, the whole southern part of the state, I heard a couple times saying there's no early services in FEMA.
Preschool.
Preschool, yes, I meant. But FBC's been mentioned several times, what they provide here. Is it the position that that vendors are needed in Region 3 to provide the early intervention services or the birth to 3? I mean, if there's, and also that there was kind of a steady plane there, well, without any real services, that's gonna, I don't even know how you read that, but, go ahead.
Fantastic question. I'm so glad you brought that up because we definitely need the board's support
Right.
to be able to do that. It's something that Annette and Oren and Shayna and myself and Michelle have talked about over the years. Our blind VI teachers down in southern Arizona would love to see that happen. We've done some cost analysis. Right now, it's fiscally would be difficult, but we can look toward our partners as well to see if there are any opportunities there. So we'll continue those conversations with the superintendency and garner any support that you can provide.
And can I just add one thing? So blind and low vision children in Region 3 are receiving services. They're just not receiving them with us. They're receiving them in their home districts, in their district preschool programs. And yes, and with the itinerant program, Region 3. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, this is Board Member Terry. Hi, this is Earl speaking. I do have a question about your literacy program for deaf, blind, low vision. So when it comes to literacy, we often think about reading and writing, and those are great skills to have, but obviously the other skill that we want to think about with our deaf-blind students is pro-tactile. And I know that time is of the essence in specifically this age range. So are there any pro-tactile curriculum or any resources that you're using in preschool?
yes, thank you for that question. Specifically for the curriculum, the Foundations for Literacy, there's not a deaf-blind component right now. However, we are partnering with the Pro-Tactile for Kids group. They are here and they are working with our students and working through.
Interesting, that wasn't mentioned.
Right, I'm sorry, we should have added that.
Yes.
I'm going to be honest, a lot of that falls under Jennifer Scarborough's department with deaf programs. We wouldn't have the Pro-Tactile team here probably if it weren't for Jennifer, so thank you. And they have been working with our birth to 5 families since COVID. They braved going into homes back in 2020 and worked with families to teach them Pro-Tactile sign language to use with their children. So that is still going on today. Thank you for bringing that up.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you, ladies. This was very informative. Okay, moving on to 1.4, the call to the public for agendized items.
I have 2 requests for agendized items. The first one I have is for Elizabeth Rouse.
Hello, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendents Katchoff and Cooper. President Kneifel, and board members. I'm Libby Browse, Elizabeth Browse, preschool teacher and ASDB EA president. Our agency is facing a $2.6 million deficit. We have seen news articles with our school's future in question. There's a mysterious audit being conducted looking into financial information about our agency. Staff have sent direct questions to our supervisors, principals, and directors. Those questions are being answered with, I don't know yet. I don't have that information. It hasn't been shared yet. Rumors are beginning to start about layoffs, hiring freezes, and pay freezes. There's confusion around what next year looks like for many staff here. Emails from our superintendent so far have been vague. Questions about the specific budget items have gone unanswered. Transparency is lacking. Staff are feeling much like the Arizona Legislative Committee members that were left in the dark about the most recent vote to audit our school. We are unsure and fear is growing. I am here today to ask the board to vote to begin the process of developing an H policy. As we face such unsure times ahead, ASDBEA is looking to partner with our board and superintendent to help shed light during these uncertain times. We are not asking to be final decision makers, just decision-making partners. We are not looking to be the leader of the agency, just to be recognized as the leaders we are. We aren't looking for total power and control, but we do think that those that need to find coverage to use the bathroom during the day should have representation at the decision-making table. We are looking to be a direct connection between board and staff, a direct connection. We are looking for that direct relationship. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
The next I have, I am so sorry if I mispronounce your name. Is it Agri Swaka?
First of all, thank you to our board for allowing me to come and make a comment and speak to you all. First of all, I have 20 years of experience with different school systems from age 3 months all the way up to K-12. One thing that I'm noticing over the 6 years that I've worked here is the number of students who are doing well. Oftentimes those students, they improve and then they leave PDSD, which is sad. We have a high number of high-need students, and that number continues to grow. And unfortunately, the attention of our teachers is often diverted to those students, and our high-performing students often leave the school due to those concerns. They leave to other schools. And so I want us and the board to think about how we as teachers can contribute and support our high academic performing students. Unfortunately, we at PDSD have received a letter grade of D. I don't know if the difference between the Tucson C grade and D grade is because they have deaf adults in the dorms and receive language access continually, whereas our day students do not have that luxury. I would love to see some more representation when it comes to budget cuts, because we don't want to give up the things that have been supporting the strategic plan, and we haven't had involvement with those budgetary cuts. And instead, there's a lot of fear and a lot of questions as to what's next. I would love some support from the board. Of course, if you have questions, I would love to help answer and help brainstorm with how we can go forward with these budgetary cuts.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to 1.5 information items, superintendent's report. Superintendent Reichman.
Good afternoon, President Kneifel, members of the ASDB Board, Acting Assistant Superintendent Kachov, Assistant Superintendent Cooper, and ASDB community. Welcome to our first January board meeting of 2025, and I'm happy to see all of you here today. I'm going to start with a short story about the American bison. Some of you may remember this story, which I shared with you maybe 3 or so years ago, but I think it's a good story to repeat today. The American bison has a really interesting characteristic that I find fascinating. That's because I grew up on a farm. I was around a lot of cows, and I know cow behavior. When cows see a storm blowing in, what do? They run. Truly, they absolutely run for the hills. They scatter. The American bison, however, does not do that. When the bison sees a storm coming, they huddle together and they start running, not opposite of the storm, but straight towards it. They make a beeline straight into and through the storm. Think about that. What happens after the storm blows away? Those cows? Someone else has to come after them and gather them back up, bring them all back together, and resurrect the herd, or resurrect the system, as it were. However, our buffalo have made it through that storm, and they're still together. That system is still intact. They are able to just keep moving right along and take care of business. That's a good reminder for us. Right now, in the year of 2025, we are anticipating some storms, some troubled times. You've already heard from some of our community member, our ASDB staff, who are deeply concerned about what is going on out and around ASDB. If we allow ourselves to run for the hills, seek cover, and scatter, ASDB will surely falter. We have to stick together. We have to be united, and we have to face that storm head on and go straight through it. There is no other way to do this. So, we do anticipate some challenges coming at us. One has already been mentioned, and that is the forensic audit that is going to be happening with ASDB this year. Why that forensic audit is happening, we don't know. What is going to come of that audit, we also don't know. We are not able to provide more information because we don't have it. When we do have more information, we will share it. But at this moment, we don't have any information. We know that we don't have enough money to cover our expenses. We have been honest and direct with the community about that fact. We have projected a $2.6 million shortfall. We could have hidden that information, but we chose not to. We have shared that openly with you, the board, with the finance committee, and with the ASDB community. Everyone knows this. It is not a secret. How we address that shortfall is a little bit more complicated. Each of us, of course, each of us wants to make sure that our own program is not impacted, does not have a reduction in funds, does not have a reduction in staffing. Of course, we all want that. I don't want a reduction in anything either. But if I am going to be a responsible superintendent, then I have to make some difficult decisions. I have to work with our leadership team and try to figure out what those decisions are that need to be made and try to minimize the impact to our students' education and well-being. That's our priority. For us, for all of you in the agency, that is what we can agree upon, that we want to ensure our priority as an agency continues to be our students' education and well-being. How we do that? There may be some differences of opinion, but we have to come together and we have to address the situation. We have to ride through that storm. We cannot hide from it. So we also know, involved in all of that, we have a shortage of qualified teachers, interpreters, and staff. So how do we bring in qualified staff if we don't have enough money to cover those costs? Well, that's a dilemma. We are working on it, but it does mean that the number of staff have to be in alignment with the number of students that we have. We also know that the number of students that we have enrolled within ASDB has declined. If we are going to be responsible stewards of our resources, we have to look at our enrollment numbers, and we have to look at our number of staff, and we have to make sure that those two numbers align. Currently, we are doing a realignment of the agency and trying to figure that out. Again, the information that we have shared. We've shared it with you, the board. We have shared it with our leaders. And I just sent out an email today to our leaders saying that these are the decisions that we have made. What is not there are the decisions that we have not made. I don't want to tell people information and then have to say, no, never mind. I don't want to cause additional confusion. I want to be very clear in all of our communication about the decisions that have already been made, and what's left, know that we are working through it. And we are making those decisions as quickly as we can. When they are made, we will share that information with the agency. And then we can also talk about our facilities. You just found out that there's a water leak somewhere in this building that we are in right now, so we had to close the bathrooms. So board and community members have to go to another building during the break to go to the restroom. And this is just one example of the deterioration of our buildings on both of our campuses, Tucson and Phoenix. We desperately need renovations, but we do not have the funding for those renovations. And the state has made it very clear that we are not going to get that money to do those renovations. We have some really serious challenge ahead of us in 2025. So for us, for you, the board, for the ASDB community, for us to be able to think about our long-term sustainability as an agency, we have to look at the resources that we have. We have to figure out how to align those resources with the funding that we have so that we can continue functioning as an agency. And what we are doing here is critical to our students in the state of Arizona. You just heard Dr. Benedict during her presentation and Miss Ahern talk about the services that they provide throughout the state of Arizona. No one else is doing that work. We are doing that. We have the best teachers providing the best support to our parents and to their young children. And our children are making progress. They are learning, and that is solely because of the work that that department is doing. We are committed to continuing that work, but that also means that we need to plan for the future. We need to take a hard look at the environment that we're in, the resources that we have, and figure out what we can do and do well. So for you, the board members, you have a work study session coming up on February 13th. And we will be giving a presentation about our budget. We'll talk about how much we're bringing in, how much we are spending, so that you can learn more in depth about our fiscal resources. And then on April 10th, we're going to be providing you with the next strategic plan, Strategic Plan 2.0 for 2025 through 2030. With your information about the budget, and then the information we'll provide about the strategic plan, we will ask for you to work with us to figure out how to use our resources to support that next strategic plan. You'll have an opportunity to look at that, provide us feedback, and then at the May board meeting, we will ask you for approval of the next strategic plan. We have a lot of work ahead of us this year. But I am confident that we can meet these challenges. We can do it if we stick together. If we face that storm head on and we run right through it as a collective. I also want to mention, before I close my presentation, that I am really proud of our teachers, our staff, our leaders. Over this last year, 2024, we have had some challenges, and they have stuck with us. They have remained committed, loyal, professional, and I truly believe that they are providing the absolute best education and support for our students across the state of Arizona. I would not be asking for another contract for 3 years if I didn't believe that about my lovely community and everyone who works with ASDB. So, thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
This is Earl Terry speaking. I did like the American Bison story that you told of sticking together through the challenging storm. I do want to remind you that going through various storms can lead to burnout and can lead to negative consequences, like people dying in a storm, for example. So I do want to say that your communication style is fantastic, but I do think that seeing the presentation, from that presentation, I've seen a lack of some frustration and a lack of trust in what is being conveyed. I would like to say that ongoing dialogue is very important. We can't just say, I don't know. We need more information than that, and do the best that you can in filling in details, because just saying that you don't know can lead to more mistrust in relationships. And ACT communication, accountability, communication, and transparency. I am very concerned about the communication style and the leadership style, talking about numbers reducing and budget cuts, etc. I understand those are concerns, but I am also concerned about the communication style, and I do hope that you have been taking account of what the public has been saying in terms of the H policy, in terms of retention. Those are two important topics that I'm keeping an eye on since I joined in the summer in June. And the various meetings that have been present, that I have been present and part of, I have not seen an improvement, to be honest with you.
I do have a question, and it might be better suited for the financial presentation, but I'm going to ask it here. The budget deficit of 2.6 million, is that all due to over expenditure, or is that in part and parcel because of the legislature cuts to the budget?
This is Assistant Superintendent Cooper. As previously mentioned on several occasions, most of the deficit is related to the reduction in student enrollment, increased costs with nursing, also with contracted transportation, in addition to funding decline with the state's general fund appropriations, as well as the reduction since COVID. We received quite a bit of money when it came to COVID. So there are a number of reasons that attribute to the projected shortfall.
Follow-up question on that. I lost my train of thought. If it comes back, I'll ask it in the financial presentation. I do have one other question for you, Superintendent Reichman. In relationship to that forensic audit, I am under the understanding that we have not received anything to date from either the external auditor or from the legislature giving us any indication of what it is that they are looking for or what it is that they are suspicious of.
I am happy to share the JLAC meetings, all of the details. I went. It was the Legislative Audit Committee meeting, and I can share that, but that's not going to give you any more information because during that meeting, there was no information shared.
Okay. I think that's all for now. Does anyone else have any other comments or questions?
This is Linda Bove. Speaking of the same struggles, the facility struggles rather, in terms of student safety, staff, public who come to work at these facilities, bathrooms being closed down, sanitation issues. How is that going to affect students and staff, and are we thinking about safety concerns? Who's responsible for the student safety if the legislature or state refuses to support those needs? Where is that accountability, and where do we stand in that regard? So that's something I was thinking of in terms of student, staff, and public safety coming to these facilities. Is that something that is there something that we can do? We can talk about safety and sanitation concerns, that there are significant issues that the state is going to have accountability for when safety issues do arise. I'm not sure.
We regularly communicate with the Arizona Department of Administration. Their building renewal department. We have provided an annual request thus far included with our annual request of our capital projects. The state has very limited funding. The building renewal department has to prioritize which state facilities they are going to make renovations and repairs to. So statewide, we are just one state agency of many that are across the state and the facilities therein that don't have enough funding to cover all of the needed renovations and repairs. So each year we do track a list and submit what we think we need to take care of with our 2 campuses and their facilities. The building renewal provides some funding to us, but most of the time it's not sufficient. It's about $500,000, $700,000-ish within a year to help provide some of the repairs. And the renovations have been put off and put off and put off. And now we're at the point where the infrastructure of several systems are starting to degrade. And we have to go back to the facilities renewal and get their assistance to take care of those issues. So far, we have been okay. Not great, but okay. Shayna, was there anything you wish to add?
Yes. In addition to that, internally, we have, since I started in 2018, tried to build in a contingency for emergency-related items when it comes to the agency's facilities. So that is something that we try to budget for when there are emergencies related to life safety issues. But again, it's not ongoing sustainability and amounts to the funding that is needed to address all of the related facility infrastructure needs for both campuses.
Shayna, can I ask sort of a follow-up in regards to that? First of all, the money that we've been asking for from the building renewal department, as well as the contingency you are building in, neither of those things were taking place prior to Superintendent Reichman and Shayna coming on to the agency. Is that correct?
The request happens annually and has all along. But we've improved how we're submitting the requests, both with Shayna Cooper taking the lead and Albert Duff when he was promoted to Director of Operations. He started taking on an improvement presentation for the building renewal. Because of his efforts, we have been getting more funding and more support the last 5 or 6 years than we did previous to that.
Thank you. I appreciate that clarity.
Yeah. This is Board Member Buchanan.
Question. This is Board Member Terry. A question related to the annual request for the building renewals. I'm hoping that information is available to the public, or if it's not available to the board, could you make that information available to us?
Yes, we can make sure that information is sent to each of the board members, but it is also published.
This is UK. I would add that.
Okay, thank you.
It's pretty clear in our financial meetings and in the budget information in board docs, but also the state ASDB's budget that they propose to the state every year is also public information. It's on the governor's website.
Okay. I'm meaning more of the internal information because I don't see that information. Thank you for sharing, though, Suke.
Board Member Buchanan, I don't want to completely, if this question completely derails what we're talking about, we can not answer this, but I do have a question relating to if we do have such a budget shortfall, how that relates to our master facilities plan and how that's going to relate to our sunset audit. Because I believe that our sunset audit, that was our biggest issue, was our master facilities plan, and if we're not compliant with that, this is going to cause a cascade.
We developed the master's facilities plan in response to the 2022 sunset audit. Every year, we have made critical project committee, crucial capital project committee review. The capital projects, I think we have met the feedback from the sunset audit. The challenge is that we don't have the funding to do the major repairs, the major renovations on both campuses.
So as a follow-up, to be clear, is the state understanding that we do not, since they are not giving us those funds, it's not within our ability to complete these projects to be completely compliant with this? Like, how does this all, like, obviously I'm very concerned about our buildings and everything that's going on, the safety to our students and everything like that, but we can't, you just can't make it up here, and the state is what holds up this for us. So I guess I just want clarification on how we're possibly looking at moving forward with that, or kind of mediating that or balancing that with the state.
Well, we have done everything that we can to address the findings. And we have a beautiful master facilities plan. We would really like to seek private resources in order to fund that plan and do those major renovations if at all possible. But right now, we're not able to pursue any private resources for the moment. I would still like to do that within the next 1 to 3 years to figure out how we might be able to do that. With the Arizona Auditor General, we have not gotten the 18-month report, and that would be from the 2022 sunset audit. Most Arizona Auditor Generals, when they do an audit, a sunset audit specifically, they do that initial audit, they have their findings and recommendations, and then they print a report, which they give to the agency, and they also give that to the state legislature. The state legislature decides to continue or not the agency. In 2023, the state legislature decided to continue us for 4 years. The Arizona Auditor General was supposed to do a 6-month follow-up with us with an additional report that would be published as far as what we had done to comply with their findings and recommendations. We have been actively working with the Arizona Auditor General to fulfill the recommendations and findings. And then after that 6 months, we continue to meet regularly with the Arizona Auditor General, and they continue to follow up with us to ensure that we are implementing fully all of their recommendations from that original report. The Arizona Auditor General is supposed to publish an 18-month report stating what we have completed and what has yet to be completed. However, we have not gotten that 18-month report yet from the Arizona Auditor General's office. When we meet with them, there is no information. They have not said we're not doing what they're asking or anything of the sort. The only information that we're receiving, all of the information that we receive says that, in fact, we are completing everything that they've asked of us. So as far as I know, and verbally, we've gotten confirmation that we have completed everything. We just don't have that final written report from the Arizona Auditor General's office. Will we get that report? Maybe, maybe not. I really don't know. Because now that Joint Legislative Audit Committee has ordered the Arizona Auditor General's office to conduct an RFP to get a private firm to do a forensic audit of ASDB. And that is for unknown reasons. Then in 2026, our next sunset audit will come up. So now we are essentially blending that 2022 audit with the forensic audit with the upcoming 2026 sunset audit. Again, I don't have any information. I'm not able to predict what's going to happen with all of this.
Thank you for all that you kind of like set that out for us. I appreciate your transparency, even if the state isn't always the most transparent with us. And I just appreciate your points of clarification on that. Thank you, Annette.
Are there any other?
Hello.
We'll go with Board Member Earl.
Hi. The forensic audit that's happening soon, have we not gotten an official black and white document from the people that you're meeting with? Can we ask for one?
We have gotten nothing. We have gotten absolutely
have we asked,
nothing.
Or are we waiting for them to give it to us?
Yeah, we have asked, we have gotten nothing. The only reason that we even know that the forensic audit is happening is because Maria Murphy found out that we were on the agenda for the JLAC committee, and that was back in December. And Maria and I decided to go because we didn't understand why our agency was on the agenda in the first place. During that meeting, there was no information or explanation provided as to why or what was going on. There was absolutely nothing shared.
Thank you.
The only thing that happened was that the committee voted, and that vote was to give $2 million to the Arizona Auditor General's office to conduct or to contract with that outside agency to conduct the forensic audit of ASDB.
This is Gordon. I don't really have a question, but I do want to just put a perspective out there that, and this isn't in defense of anyone and without even a position as much as just an observation. What's occurring here at ASDB is the same that's happening with every agency, every not-for-profit. Everybody's facing some severe financial shortfall. As Shana said, everything was propped up with COVID money the last And we're only really 2.5 years out of COVID, maybe 2 years. People think that it's gone and that was it. Now maybe the incidence of the infection have been reduced, but the fallout is still very present. When it comes to student census, when it comes to people participating in programs, referrals, a lot of the state government agencies are still working virtually or mostly virtually. That can work okay when you're working with, when you're in a shutdown, virtual work kept things going. When you're trying to segue that and have the synergy of that with people on site, that doesn't work that smoothly. You know, I've been on the finance committee for, I don't know, many years now. Our reporting is as accurate and as up to date as we can possibly have it. Again, I'm not defending anything right now. I'm just saying this is what it's like out there. Having a contingency plan for emergencies is unbelievably expensive, and particularly when you have a shortfall. All of a sudden, you're just going to say, we're going to put 50,000 here, we're going to put 50,000 there. It doesn't work that way. In business cycles, you go through these types of things. Anybody that has any tenure, and I look around this table, a lot of people have some tenure. So this is what you deal with sometimes. It's not a matter of not telling people what they want to know because you don't have answers. You know, the idea of this forensic audit, believe me, I understand this 100% that this came out of somewhere that feel they got some teeth and they've allocated $2 million, but that doesn't mean they're going to tell you anything until they decide they want to. And you can ask, you can knock on doors. Maria has a lot of good contacts. She would have the most up-to-date information that would be passed on, but she doesn't have it. Again, third time I said it, I'm not in defense of anything right here. I'm just saying how it works, and this is what's going on right now. PPP money, Small Business Administration money, that pumped millions into agencies' budgets. That's not there, so all of a sudden, you take that out, and you know we go from 100% budget to a 97% budget. We're at what, 2.6 projection? That's about what, 3%, I guess, you know, or so. Yeah, 3.5% or whatever. You know, you put that in. Also, you take into account that inflation has been hard on everybody. Labor costs have gone way up, but again, with no income to support those labor costs. You put it together, this is what we're dealing with in 2025, and I don't mean just ASDB, but this is what the economic culture is. And I guess I'm just saying it so people understand this, that as a collective, everybody's trying to work for the same good cause and the ultimate cause. So that's what we deal with. That's what everybody's dealing with. And I understand for even people in the audience, that's what you're dealing with too, on a different way. But it is a cycle right now, and we can be, you know, running through the storm or however you want to approach it. But it's a complicated issue, and it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a lot of time, and it might take some pain, because that's what happens in these kinds of things, and you see where you can come out on the other side. People don't want to hear that, but that's how it is. And I just want to put that out there, because there is no lack of transparency here. This isn't like, well, we're not going to tell them because, you know, sometimes you have to withhold until it's the proper time. This isn't the case. That's all.
Susan, I think you had a comment?
I may be overstepping my bounds here, and as a new board member, I'm going to just go ahead and ask for forgiveness later. I happen to be privy, and basically speaking to those of you in the audience, because I totally, as a parent and as a recipient of the dedication and heart that teachers and staff put into helping my son get to where he is today, I see your fear, I hear your fear, and I too am very frustrated that we've got a senator who is not only not being transparent with our superintendent and with the board, despite multiple requests. There was a news brief from Phoenix that was held 2 weeks ago, maybe, that I happened to catch. And is it okay if I talk about senators' names and who we're talking about? Can I go ahead and say?
Is that okay? I'm looking to Michelle out there.
I'll just go ahead and repeat what I heard on the news brief, that we have a senator in Queen Creek, Jay Kaufman, who is the one who is actually bringing this to the forefront with this mysterious audit, and a $2 million request was passed. And he has members on his own committee that do not know any information about this audit. And they went ahead and voted for it anyway. I don't understand that. I'm a nurse. I don't get it. I'm also very plain spoken and feel like plain talk is easy understood. So I have no answer as to why we're not getting the information that we need, or that our superintendent, Annette, is not getting the information she needs. Our finance committee is not getting the information they need to be able to address these concerns. What I want you to know is that ASDB has a very good reputation over the years. I want to see us back where we were 10 years ago. And I do think we are going to have to move through a storm. And it's not only going to take your board members, it's going to take you all as well, holding hands and finding out, why are we not being told what's happening? Why are we not, why is the legislator, who, by the way, they work for us, right? We pay their salaries. Why are they not being transparent with us so that we can address these issues and get it all out on the table for everyone? So teachers, staff, thank you. Board members, thank you. And if I've overstepped my bounds, well, you guys just have to forgive me and tell me later that I can't do this anymore.
Thank you, Susan. Any other comments or questions before moving on? All right, going on to 1.6, information item, Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction Report, Interim Assistant Superintendent Catchell.
Good afternoon, Board President Kneifel, members of the board, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Cooper, and the ASDB community. You all have my board report, and I look forward to any potential questions. Similar to last year, before the winter break, all staff on the educational side of the agency were given the opportunity to provide anonymous, it was called a 2 stars and a wish feedback for their director or principal via a survey. The purpose of this is to provide our leaders with formative data that they can use to continue doing what is working, as well as find an area where they can continue to improve. All the leaders have been given that information and have been sharing with their staff what their takeaways are from that survey. Unlike last year, our big emphasis at this time is the ASDB budget shortage and how that affects our plans for this year as well as next year. Deputy Assistant Superintendent Rosie De La Cruz, Superintendent Reichman, and I will be meeting with both principals separately in February to identify their scheduling needs for next year, ensuring that the schools are adequately staffed while remaining fiscally prudent. This will be based on both their student counts as well as individual student needs. This week and next week, we have been meeting with the leaders at both campuses and the preschools to ensure that we're maximizing billing for Medicaid reimbursement in hopes that that can help us close part of that budget deficit. Overall, I do appreciate how everyone, from the teachers to the leaders, have been stepping up to try to find areas where we can cut back, as well as areas that we might be underutilizing for creating revenue. As we navigate a challenging financial landscape, I am excited to see the grit and resilience in ensuring that we have continued success for our organization. As you all know, grit is defined as perseverance and passion for long-term goals. And I do believe that grit will be a key asset as we face our current financial and fiscal constraints. While the budget shortage does pose significant challenges, it's not insurmountable. I do believe that grit, particularly in times of adversity, can become an essential driving force if we try to harness it. Staff and leadership must stay focused on our long-term goals, which ultimately are about providing services and education to our students. We need to continue to focus and make sure that we are spending on initiatives that are most directly supporting our core mission and our long-term stability. Before I close, I would like to share some updates on the ELP, itinerant services, and our day schools. In our itinerant services, we have been able to offer services to every district that we had on our waiting list. We are offering services to every student that is referred to the ASDB itinerant programs. We have in-person services for some students, virtual services for other students, and we are partnering with FBC for students who are referred to us from parochial schools that we are not able to serve. As shown in Dr. Benedict's presentation, the ELP is excited to report on the progress of our infant, toddlers, and preschool children across all of our programs. The ASL Parent and Provider Survey is underway as part of the Identify Services and Improve Capacity for Children Who Are Deaf and Hard of Hearing project, which is made possible through a grant awarded to the Ear Foundation of Arizona from the Arizona Community Foundation. For more information on that grant, please feel free to reach out directly to Dr. Benedict. In practicing our operating principles of accountability, collaboration, and transparency, ASDB did get letter grades from the Arizona Department of Education this year. This is the first time since becoming an LEA that ADE has provided us with our letter grades. As an LEA, ASDB received a letter grade of a C. Our Tucson campus also received the letter grade of a C. As Agri pointed out, PDSD missed a grade of a C by 1/4 of a point. So not 1 point, not a half a point, but we missed it by 1/4 of a point. We did appeal that letter grade with the state board, but that appeal was denied. And I did share all that information with the PDSD staff this last Friday. I'm personally struggling with that we can't do anything to find 1/4 of a point, but it is very clear that we've exhausted everything we can do. And at this point, it's just kind of accepting it and using that as a baseline as we move forward. As a point of reference, I do want to share that Gallaudet's Model Secondary School for the Deaf, which is considered one of the better schools for the deaf in the nation, received what would be equivalent to a C label by their state schools label designation. And the only reason I'm sharing this is just a reminder that most state rating systems are not friendly to schools for the deaf and the blind, no matter which state that they're dedicated, or in what state they're located. So for both campuses, we will continue building upon supports that we currently have in place, like tutoring, tracking data on our students, utilizing our instructional coaches in the classroom, and identifying students who are close to moving up to the next level of proficiency, as well as adding some additional supports as ensuring that lesson plans are linked to state standards, spending more time with our students on understanding the practice tests so they know what these tests look like ahead of time, as well as test-taking strategies. Arizona's letter grade system is a little bit complicated, but if the board would like more in-depth information about it at a future board meeting, I'm more than happy to do a presentation on that. So in closing, the current budget shortage is undoubtedly a challenge, but it is not one that we cannot overcome. By leaning into the concept of grit, perseverance, passion for our mission, and resiliency, I believe that we will adapt, innovate, and continue to work towards our long-term goals. As many have already mentioned in this meeting, the upcoming months will require tough decisions, but if we remain committed, united, and resourceful, we will navigate this obstacle. I'm open if there's any questions.
This is Linda Bove. I do have a question for the board members to understand what you mean when you made the comment that programs are not friendly to deaf and hard of state rating systems rather are not friendly to the deaf and hard of hearing programs. I'm not sure what specific word you used, but you said not friendly to or does not align with or something along those lines. What do you mean by that? Could you elaborate?
Sure. So for states who have some kind of rating system, a lot of that does tend to be based on proficiency of understanding, being proficient to their standards. Many of our students do come in below, and we're trying to catch them up. We also, I think, have a scenario where, I'm trying to think of a specific term, but I know for many words, especially when you get academic terms, teachers might be using different signs for what those terms mean. On ADE's test, they do have Pearson that does some of the ASL translation, which is wonderful, and we appreciate ADE putting that in recently. But a lot of times we do not get to see what those videos are prior, so we don't know really the level of ASL that possibly some of those interpreters are using, as well as some of those key words. We might be teaching using a different sign, and then when the kids click on the link to see the question in ASL, it could be different based on, is the person a professor? Are they based out of Pennsylvania? Are they based out of Colorado? So I do think that some of those items, which are hard for test makers to understand, do make our kids and our teachers have to try harder, in my opinion.
Okay, you are right. Tests do need to be developed differently in a way to accommodate deaf students based on the language that they use. It's not English. Their language tends to be ASL forward, so trying to force them to fit into a round hole, that metric is not, it's going to be off. At the same time, because of language deprivation as well, in their childhood, that also can cause issues with rating and also using differences in language. But I mean, as deaf people, we do get used to it, and we do get used to adapting to various communication styles, but not having a foundation due to language deprivation, maybe because families don't sign or have not taken the time to do that, or because they focused on the spoken language methods until later in their life and missed that critical language learning period. There's layers of issues. There's layers, and there's also accountability that isn't taken at those different layers of decision making. So, we do appreciate the hard work of our staff and our leadership team as well. It is impressive, all the work that has been done, but we do have to look at the source of the problem first as well, and take care and start working there. And our ELP program is putting a lot of language exposure to our very young children, and that helps stave off that language deprivation factor, and which is one of the elements that does skew those scores. So looking at that, doesn't make sense for us to be measured by those metrics. And I tend to understand because of my own experiences, my own lived experience, right? I have a family history. I went to a deaf school, but a lot of people don't understand those factors that are influencing this. So that's where we have to kind of partner with and work together to come up with strategies and methods specifically pertaining to language acquisition. Those were my thoughts in response to what you were sharing. So I wanted to share those. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have a follow-up as well. I'm, not to oversimplify this, but I'm understanding that this letter grade system is based also on student achievement based on like state standards testing. Those tests aren't normed for our kids either. They're typically normed for kids, you know, may not have a language barrier, may not have a cultural barrier, may not have, you know, a variety of other barriers that are faced in front of them. And I think while I know and I appreciate the fact that you guys did work to appeal that D grade, I also think that we're trying to climb uphill, push that rock uphill, and the system is working against us as well. My two cents.
Thank you. I do want to say that, again, we do appreciate that ASDB does invite us in now for some of the item selections for the testing. The adding of ASL has been phenomenal. They've also been very open when Michael Olivier looks at some of those videos and critiques them, to taking those comments to heart. In meeting with 2 state board people earlier in the week, they do want to meet to get a better idea of who we are, what we do, and what are some things in the A through F model that might be unintentionally hurting us. That said, though, it does feel like there's more holes in the dam than there are fingers, but yeah, I just gave a big spiel about grit, and so we will continue to move forward and do what we can and not give up.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. It is now about 5:36, and I'm going to call for a 10-minute break to give our interpreters and our CART folks a little bit respite, and we will come back at about, let's just say 5:50 to make it easy. ready when you guys are. Am I on? Okay.
Our captioner's not at her, not her
All right, we will wait for the captioner.
Un momento, por favor. 6:30.
Somebody's waving at you from the. She might be. All right, we are not back. Hold on.
Ruben, there's a concern there's a concern when one of our deaf board members are speaking, the interpreters are blocking them. Is there a way we can move cameras or move them or something so that there's visibility?
All right, I believe we are live. We are going to go back to, or go on to agenda item 1.7, the information item for Assistant Superintendent of Agency Operation and Support Services, Assistant Superintendent Cooper. Welcome back in person. I'm not hearing you.
Good evening, Board President Kneifel, Superintendent Reichman, Acting Assistant Superintendent Katchoff, members of the board, ASDB community and staff members. It's glad to be back in person, although I've been virtual. Thank you. Each of the directors have provided their departmental reports, and in summary, the IT department continues to work on numerous activities, including the firewall replacement on the Tucson campus and the Wi-Fi project on the Phoenix campus. The Student Information System and Data Integrity team continue to work on completing the reconciliation of the October 1st report for our AZ data collection. The transportation is working with ADOT on our fleet transfers as a result of ASDB no longer being exempt from the state's fleet. In addition, the team is performing a mid-year review of our fleet utilization and will begin transferring lower mileage vehicles to our higher utilization drivers in order to correctly allocate mileage across the fleet. The food services team continues to work with the two campuses along with our IT department to implement a barcode scanning process to improve the cafeteria line at the point of sale. And the equipment has been received, and we're working on printing and distributing those student IDs in the upcoming weeks. For business services, the budget and financial report for November 2024 and 2023 will be provided separately under agenda item 4.1. And we were recently informed today that the fiscal year 2026 governor's executive budget is being finalized, and the state's Office of Strategic Planning and Budgeting has reached out to schedule a meeting with us next week. With that said, we should receive an update regarding the various funding issues that were submitted in September, which we were hoping to get funded, and that related to our contracted transportation and one-to-one nursing services. The HR team have been involved in training and testing the new State of Arizona HRIS system called AZ360 and have been working through the recruitment and retention challenges. The new system will launch in May 2025 and will impact all state employees. We have been told that AZ360 will be accessible to our blind, low vision staff members, which is currently not accessible. And so this will most likely impact some of our payroll processes and HR processes. In addition to the departmental reports, I want to provide a brief update on the ongoing work to address our significant budget challenges and outline our next steps toward fiscal sustainability. And as board member Gordon mentioned, similar to other schools in Arizona and across the nation, we're all aware of the challenging financial realities many schools and organizations are facing. Specific to ASDB, as previously mentioned, the shortfall last year and this year has been brought on by a number of factors, such as the change in our LEA status, declining student enrollment, increased student support needs, increased contractual obligations, rising operating costs due to inflation, and a reduction to the general fund appropriations and other revenue funding sources. Inflationary pressures on our payroll, benefits, and services have outstripped our ability to reduce our expenses through attrition, while our student enrollment and funding streams continue to decline. In layman terms, that means our expenses are outpacing our revenues, which means we're spending more than we're bringing in. Last year, we had a $1.8 million shortfall, and as mentioned, we're projecting a $2.6 million shortfall for fiscal year 2025 if no major changes to our spending occur. The last few years, we've had surpluses and a healthy unrestricted fund cash balance, which has helped to offset last year's shortfall. However, the balance is finite and will not last long if we continue to operate with a shortfall. We will need to rely on that balance in the short term, being careful not to spend it down significantly as we continue to try to build in emergency reserves. Making budget adjustments takes precision, so just filling budget gaps, deficits, or shortfalls isn't as simple as some people tend to think. And as I've mentioned on previous occasions, a lot of our funding is restricted, so meaning it must be used for specific purposes. Several of our key stakeholders continue to review data metrics, as Superintendent Wright mentioned, specific to the agency's operations, both fiscally and programmatically, as we focus on finding ways to cut and balance the agency's budget for 2025 and the years that immediately follow. As Acting Superintendent, as Assistant Superintendent Kotchov mentioned, we have received recommendations from agency staff and have identified spending reduction measures to help cut day-to-day operating expenses to ease some of the budgetary pressure that we've all received ideas on as well, in addition to increasing our revenue. So we've received recommendations on how to increase revenue streams as well as how to reduce the budget. The agency's current financial status, future outlook, and spending reduction measures have been shared with and communicated to education staff to ensure that we're able to process through them. And some of those spending reductions have included reducing travel, transportation, professional development. We're monitoring strictly more purchases for materials, supplies, and equipment, and we are looking at ways to reduce our payroll. As you all are aware, more than 80% of our budget is earmarked for salaries and benefits, which typically impact staff. So with that said, staffing levels are being reviewed, as previously mentioned, and being spearheaded by our deputy assistant and assistant to align our enrollment with student counts. As we also look at vacated positions, we're trying to address that through attrition and trying to determine if those positions should be refilled or eliminated. The next couple of months will be emotionally hard and difficult as we make these decisions, but it's necessary. I know we all have a range of emotions. We continue to hear about that, whether it's anger, sadness, frustration. That's normal and expected, and I feel those same emotions as well. I wish I could say things would be a little different, but it is my responsibility to work with the superintendent to ensure we as an agency are fiscally responsible. Despite the challenges we all are facing, our reality is we need to focus on our students. And when we continue to look at additional reduction strategies to both address those immediate and short-term, long-term financial health, we're doing that equitably across the agency. So not just the education side, but also the agency operations and support services as well, trying to make sure that we minimize the impact on our staff, students, our services, and our programming, whether it's funded or not. Regarding transparency, financial information has and continues to be presented in the various fiscal reports that are published and discussed at the financial committee meetings. And as a reminder, prior to my start, in 2018, the agency did not have fiscal data. Staff are more than welcome to send specific questions to the team and I, and whenever possible, we do our best to answer those questions. But to be honest, the 6 years I've been here, I think I've only received a handful of questions. I know this is a time of trust building, and I want to reiterate, I am committed to continuing to share information in a timely and transparent manner when available as we work together and find solutions. So where do we go from here? I encourage everyone to consider what you can do to ensure the future of our students and ASDB, what it will take to balance our budget, restore our financial health, and create a sustainable path forward. Together, we'll work through these challenges as we've all pretty much had the same message today and continue to prioritize the needs of our students, family, and staff. And that wraps up my report, and I'm open to answer any questions or address any comments.
Thank you. Any questions for Shana? Thank you. I appreciate it. Before moving on, I do want to mention on record that Susan Singler left, but we are still meeting quorum. Moving on to item 2.1, action item, approval of the consent agenda, consistent with board policy to include items 3.1, 5.1, 5.2, 6.1, 6.2, 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4. I am open for a motion.
Board President Kneifel, this is Board Member Bove. I have a question for you. So this consent agenda has multiple items that's all been lumped together, so to speak. Is there a way that we can single out items? For example, the BPAC agreement, those are fairly consistent. The district agreements, those are fairly consistent that we get those regularly, teacher contracts, donations. There's a lot in this consent agenda. Is there a way we could better organize this?
So in the agenda, and it might be because of the new diligence system, in the agenda, they are listed separately after the consent agenda. So if you go through the other points of the agenda, those are in there and explains a little bit more, and some of them do have, yes, attachments, thank you. So they are in the agenda. If there are any that you would like to pull and look at and vote on separately, we can do that as well. I would need a motion for that, though.
This is Board Member Buchanan. I'll make a motion to accept all of the items on the consent agenda.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have
Seconded.
Board Member Gordon seconding that. All those in favor to approve the consent agenda items as listed, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. Moving on.
Thank you. A point of order, a question. Is there a way that we can organize this differently or better, or a way to make this accessible, separate these out? That's just a point of feedback. To have them all lumped together is quite difficult to access.
I will speak with Leticia and see if there's a way we can organize this in a different way. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 4.1, information item, finance report. Kim Bittridge, Director of Business Services.
Good evening, Board President Knifel, Superintendent Reichman, Assistant Superintendent Cooper, Acting Assistant Superintendent Kakchoff. Did I get it right? Members of the Board, ASDB community. You've been provided with our most recent board report that covers financial data for November 2023 and 2024. This data was covered in more detail at our most recent Finance Committee meeting held on Thursday, January 9th, with Board President Knifel, Board Member Gordon, Superintendent Reichman, and Assistant Superintendent Cooper. The total student count provided in the board report for December 1st, 2024 shows 1,932 students compared to 2,178 students as of July 1st, 2023. That's the total decrease of 246 students. When comparing the December 1st, 2024 student count to November 1st, 2024 of 1945, there's a decrease of 13 students. Tucson campus increased by 2, PDSD decreased by 2, preschool has increased by 5, birth to 3 has decreased by 9, and the regions have decreased by 9. As of December 1st, we had about 514 full-time employees, full-time equivalent, which includes 8.5 full-time equivalents at FBC, Foundation for Blind Children. At that time, we employed 733 students. There were 114 vacancies across the agency at that time. Since then, we have removed positions that have been open and posted for more than a year, and we are reviewing all positions that have been open for less than 1 year. The highlights of the November 2024 financial report shows the revenue of $15.2 million was $44,000 lower than the November 2023 revenue of $15.16 million. The major difference is the decrease in the general fund spent year to date, offset by an increase in the voucher revenue and the classroom site fund revenue. These are both based on the student count. Since we are vouchering earlier this year, we have received these funds earlier than we did at this time last year. The budget fiscal year 2024 obligated expenditures of $27.6 million were $1 million less than the budget fiscal year 2025 expenses of $28.6 million. The increases are in payroll and employee-related expenditures of $2.3 million. This is partially due to salary increases given to staff, as well as step increases for teachers and related services staff to match their years of service. This is offset by a decrease in the other expenditure categories. Travel and equipment are decreased as part of budget cuts. Food service is down as a result of fewer students. We are expending more non-appropriated funds this year, specifically the classroom site fund and the Medicaid reimbursement funds to the extent allowable. This concludes my report, and I'm available for any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Here's where I do this shameless plug about recruiting more board members for the Finance Committee. Even if you are not ready to join it formally, you could always sit in and learn a little bit more. And I would encourage that. Okay, moving on to agenda item 6.3, discussion and possible action item, education organizations at ASDB. All right. So we were going to have a presentation, and what I will say is that there are minor differences, very much nuanced differences as a state agency as far as having a meet and confer policy. One of the biggest is utilizing state resources, which could be staff time, agency equipment, access to emails, etc. I would like to move into executive session for additional legal consultation. If so, I'm going to move that. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to move into executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, you get to read your.
It's this one, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3, the board may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public, for discussion, consultation, for legal advice with the board's attorneys as it relates to this item.
So we will adjourn to executive session at 6:13.
Which direction are we going?
That way. you for your patience. We're resuming the open meeting at 7:07 p.m. In regards to 6.3, the discussion and possible action item regarding education organizations at ASDB, per further discussion and consultation with our attorney generals, it's my understanding that the theoretical intent of a meet and confer policy, that ASDB has policy in place to address many of these issues, and staff in place, including the ombudsman, to address some of these issues. I'm open to any further comments, questions, or a motion.
This is Board Member Buchanan.
I would move that we establish an H policy. This is Board Member Terry. I make a motion that we establish an H policy.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? There is no second. The motion fails. Do I have an alternative motion or any other discussion?
I am Board Member Buchanan, and I will make a motion for the board to not adopt an H policy.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Okay.
This is Board Member Terry.
We still have a majority. The motion carries. Moving on to 6.4, discussion and action item, renewal of Superintendent Reichman's 3-year employment contract beginning July 1 of 2025 to June 30th, 2028. I will entertain a motion for the contract or to go into executive session. I do want to just make a comment that there would be no changes to her current contract. It would just be an extension of those 3 years.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that. This is Board
All
Member
those
Vogt.
in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, seeing none, motion carries. Moving on to 7.1, information and discussion item, introduction and possible discussion of policy GCFC. Maria Murphy, Director of Policy and Government Relations.
Board President Kneifel, Superintendent Reichman, members of the board, staff, and members of the ASDB community. You have before you the red line of policy GCFC. It was posted online. I have not received any comments in regards to this policy. Just so for the board's information, these changes were recommended by the Arizona School Boards Association, and they are in response to changes in Arizona Revised Statute from the previous legislative session. And with that, I'd like to make myself available for any questions.
Thank you, Maria. Any questions for Maria on this policy? This is the first read, correct, Maria? So
yes.
We will see this again for action.
Yes, ma'am.
Any questions? All right, thank you, Maria.
Okay, thank you.
8.1, call to the public for non-agenda items. Do we have any? Oh,
Sorry.
okay, sorry. All right. Moving on to 8.2, discussion and possible action item, agenda items for the next regular board meeting. I would like to propose that we add to the agenda for the next meeting discussion and possible action about utilizing some of our work study sessions as the board to hold town hall meetings for the ASDB community as well as staff to address concerns and bring issues to the board and executive team. Any other agenda items currently that you'd like to see? Okay, you can always contact the board or Annette if you have anything you'd like to see on there. I think we are down to 9.1, action item, adjournment. I'm open to a motion. We don't have Lynn.
This is Board Member Buchanan. I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.